listening to Labrador Legacy. You're going to hear from Leander Baikie of Northwest River. You will hear about him being a musician and before the bridge was built and its construction.
Hi, my name is Leander Baikie and I live in the community of Northwest River, Labrador, Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada.
When were you born?
A long time ago, early 1960s. I was born in the hospital in Northwest River, which is down by the waterfront.
How were you raised?
Family, I had one sister and myself and mother and father, and they both worked, and I went to school at Lake Melville School all my life and graduated from Lake Melville School. And we just had a fun time, I guess, growing up in Northwest River itself.
What did you learn as a child?
What did I learn as a child? Well, I mean, in Labrador we learned how to hunt and we learned how to fish and we learned how to set snares and catch rabbits. And then when we were 8 or 9, then we learned how to play music. We played a lot of music when I was 8, 9 years old. And by the time we were 13, we were playing for dances in the community hall.
Did you help each other?
Yeah, we had to help each other because back when I grew up in Northwest River, there was only the cable car. There was no bridge until 1982. So we had to help each other. And if you didn't have something like to make for supper or whatever, you'd ask your neighbor if you could borrow a cup of sugar.
What were your favorite things to do?
Back then, ride on skidoo. That was good. We all had 12 horsepower skidoos because there used to be a Hudson Bay store here, so they would always sell skidoos every year, new skidoos. So after a while, we ended up with our own machines. We'd ride around town. And what we used to do we used to play music for fun, really, learn new songs. And back then, it's not like, an iPhone or the internet with all the lyrics. You actually had to take a record, put it on the record player, and lift the needle on and off and write down each sentence of the song until we got it, and then try to figure out the chords. So that took a lot of time. That was fun.
What games did you play?
Ooh, games. Well, board games like Sorry and Monopoly was available back then. Other than that, Crazy Eights, we used to play Crazy Eights because that was a card game. Yeah, but that's about all the games we really played. We spent more time outdoors because back then when we grew up, we only had black and white TV and not everybody had electricity hooked to their houses. So we spent most time outdoors growing up in Northwest River.
What was it like?
It was pretty dark in the winter. But see, back then we had the hospital here, and after a while they had their own power source, so they had their own diesel generators. And then a little bit longer, when the base opened up, then other people would buy generators from the base and bring it down to power their own houses. But I still remember looking at we had lamps, mostly lamps in the nighttime and lamps on the walls. When I was real young, it was interesting, but it's much better with power for sure. But it was just different, I guess.
We have electricity now, so we can be able to get heat, right? You had to use wood stove back then, right?
Yes, that's right. It was just lamps on the wall or wood stoves. Only way to heat your home. So everybody had to work so hard to make sure they had enough wood for winter. But it was a full-time job. Keep the heat going. And I don't know where they bought the oil for the lamps. I guess it's from the Hudson Bay Company. They used to be the main supplier for everything back in the day.
What was dating like back then?
Oh, it was a lot of fun back then. But it was good for us because that's when Northwest River used to be a center for education. So we had all the school kids from the coast would come and stay in the dorm. And so we had lots of choices for dating then because we had lots of people from the coast of Labrador as well.
Who were your role models?
Getting back in the day, there wasn't much in the way of television. We only got television when the base had television up on the base. And then it was all black and white. And I remember the first time I ever saw a color television. It was the minister's house, and I think it was Get Smart was the first show we ever watched in color on TV. So if you ever get a chance to look at that on YouTube, Get Smart. As for role models, it's hard to say. I guess the Hudson Bay store managers, some of the doctors and nurses that worked at the hospital would have been our role models back in the day. And then it was our family members who, the ones that were the better hunters, I guess, probably were more of our role models.
What was your favorite thing about Northwest River?
And we're going back when I was real young, right? 10, 11 years old, okay. Probably riding on skidoo, because we all started driving skidoos when we were just like 5 and 6. And then that was before they even plowed the roads in Northwest River, so you could go all winter up and down the roads on skidoo. And it used to be rough because it was all banks. You had to go up one big snow bank and down the other, all the way up and down. And the other fun thing, again, was having all the students from the North Coast come and live in Northwest River at the dorm. So we always had lots of new friends every year. They all had new ideas and things to hang out with. And boy, I remember in the month of May, because that was before we had a bridge. So they used to send over a bulldozer on the 10th of May to plow the roads. So that was an exciting thing in May. So that, oh, good, that means spring is here, and then we could actually put our skidoos away and walk around. There was very few automobiles back in the day.
Is this a true story? A tractor fell off the bridge when it was building?
Yeah, that's true. It was more like a forklift, I think it was. That was when they were building the bridge. But it was hard because that was springtime, see, and there was a lot more water flow back then, a lot more snow. So the river was more wild like that, coming down past where the cable cars and the dock is now. It was too bad, but that was the springtime that they were working on it. And I don't know what happened. I guess he misjudged the edge of the temporary bridge. It wasn't the bridge that you see there now. They had to build, what they do, they build a temporary bridge right across, like a low and flat one near the water. And then that's how they used their cranes to get up and lift it and put the pieces in place to go through. And that was done in 1982. And we were all excited. And the company that built the bridge was from Italy. And their celebratory way of saying the bridge was finished, they would put up a Christmas tree with all like just bright regular lights, light bulbs. So we knew that the bridge was done when we saw the Christmas tree on the bridge.
Yeah, how did they bring over the bulldozer?
Well, they used to have a barge, similar to what you see down by the dock there now. Isaiah's got a barge there. There was one something like that, and there was a guy by the name of Hank Schaus who lived here. We used to have a place called Schaus House. And he actually had an airstrip right where the ball field, what we call the ball field, right there.
How big was the barge? And
I guess the barge was about the size of this room, whatever size this is. We can measure it up, but it was probably like 30 feet long and 20 feet wide. And it was big enough to, like I say, dock in Sessashi. Then you'd have to drive whatever vehicle or tractor or bulldozer onto that barge, and then another boat would tow it across the river and then pull it to the dock that's there now, and they would drive it off. So that's how high in the water it floated. But it looked something like the barge that's there now by the dock. Only it was bigger and flatter, but that's the kind of vessel they used to use back in the day before the bridge, when there was only a cable car.
Was there someone in the tractor when it fell off the bridge?
Yes, there was. Yeah, unfortunately, no, he didn't survive. No, his name was Mr. Hillier. He lived in Goose Bay, and he worked with Reg Powell. I don't know if you know Reg Powell, but Reg Powell was working with him on the bridge. Reg saw him go over. But yeah, but again, he couldn't survive because it's just like the water was too fast, right? And I remember seeing the divers. The divers were all there and trying to search for his body. I don't think they found him, though. Because again, the water was just too fast, right? And it was flowing on out in Lake Melville. And really, I guess, this day and age, they should have had guardrails up, something. They should have had signs up if it's called workplace health and safety these days. And even though, it wasn't that long ago, in 1982, or 1980, 82. You think there would have been something in place, but so I don't know if the company ever got in trouble, but it really would have been the company's fault. They should have had guardrails so he wouldn't have fallen into the water.
Spend much time on the land?
Yeah, back in the day we kind of did, but that was the thing to do. After we got out of school here at Lake Melville School, we would, in the fall especially, we'd run down along the shore and set our rabbit snares. That was what we would do ourselves, and then every other weekend, I suppose, we'd go off to our cabin in summer and hunt and fish there. So yeah, we did a bit of being out on the land, and again, only because there was no cell phones, no internet back when I grew up in Northwest River. That nothing to distract us and keep us in the house. So we spent a lot of time outdoors, and that was the thing to do. You had to hunt and fish to provide food for your family, and that's what we did at a young age.
What was the most important part
of being outdoors? I guess how to catch rabbits and hunt partridges and catch fish, it seemed, back in the day, right? Because, your grocery store didn't have all the food that they have these days, so a lot of that food had to be caught, and I guess that was important, part of it. And I guess the other side was just learning how to live off the land without modern things, I guess. You could still get, guns and axes and knives and bullets. You could buy all that at the Hudson Bay store, so we had access to tools. So that was important.
What was your favorite part?
Okay, my favorite part was hunting and fishing and catching food to feed the family, or help support your family anyway, because we were only kids then, so it was mainly up to the parents, I guess, to provide for your family. So yeah, just being outdoors and just living in nature and not being stuck in the house watching TV or watching YouTube or TikTok or anything like that. It was being outdoors in the sunshine, cold or not. I mean, we used to walk to school. We didn't even have buses then. We had to walk to Lake Melville School, go home in blizzards and everything else. They didn't seem to mind. We didn't care. Go home and eat and then walk back to school in a blizzard. But just knowing how to survive outdoors was an important part, I guess, growing up in Northwest River.
Were them days tough?
We didn't know it was tough, but yeah, I mean, compared to how good we got it these days, it's tough. Hardly anybody had any vehicles. I mean, most people had canoes and not boats and motors. All our skidoos were pretty slow. And then when skidoos first came around here in the 60s, people were so excited that we had skidoos because it was easier to bring home firewood. Because if not, they used to have dog teams, right, and cut all your wood and put it on a dog team and struggle. But a snowmobile certainly made it easier. So yeah, it was hard, and you couldn't get everything you wanted when you needed it, I guess, from the grocery store. So you just had to improvise. So that taught us all how to make do with what we got, and not what we don't got. I guess it was hard in that sense. Like I say, we used to walk home from school in blizzards. If you think that's hard, that would be a hard thing, but a good thing. Made us tough. Made us tougher living in hard times.
I got 2 questions. What was the dog's name, and was the dog team fun?
Yeah. Well, it was fun, I guess. We had one dog, his name was Spot. And I think it's from the book, See Spot Run or whatever. I think that's how my parents named him Spot. Yeah, people here didn't have 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 dogs. Most people just had one dog that could haul a sleigh. So, yeah, I suppose it was fun. Well, you didn't have to walk all the way. I guess that was the funner part. You could ride home as a kid, too, see. Usually the parents had to walk behind because the dog could only pull so much, right?
Any, situations you guys come across while dog teaming?
More in the springtime when it was slushy and stuff, and then everybody had to jump off, and then you had to try. Like I say, you only had 1 or 2 dogs, so you had to let the dog try to, didn't want to wear a poor dog out. So that was always hard in the spring, and probably in the fall too, right? Then where the ice first comes, you can cut the dog's feet and stuff. So that was hard. Your dog got his foot cut, and you could tell because you see blood on the snow when you're going along looking at it. That was before they even figured out there was such thing as dog boots, or even made dog boots, I guess. Or they weren't even available then, but I guess
Did you get frostbite?
Yeah, back in the day, yeah, we would get it because that was before you had good mitts, and that was before you had good neck warmers and hats and stuff. And back then, people would didn't even know the difference really that what frostbite was. I guess in one sense, strange, eh? But
Was there a cable cart to Goose Bay?
well, the cable car was just across the river, and that ran for about 20 years, and that started in 1961 and ended in about 1980. But that was fun. Used to charge 10 cents a ride, and we would bring everything over, all your lumber, and if you had a bike or a motorcycle, everything would come over on the cable car, and you knew who was in town and who was gone. So that was the thing to do. We'd all be down the Hudson Bay store and sit and watching the cable car, so you'd get off the cable car, so you know who was in town. If strangers came, everybody in town would know, because that was our way of communicating, I guess, because again, there was no radio and there was no cell phone, so we talk about each other, who came across in the cable car, or who's left for the day. And I actually have a good picture of the cable car on my phone that somebody sent me from back in the day. But it was great, 10 cents, that's it. But sometimes they would break down, and it was hard. And then when we built the bridge, one of the Italian guys, because they used to close at 12 o'clock at night, so if they came down from Goose Bay, there was no way to get across the river. So one night he crawled across on hand over hand on the wires, on the cable car wires. Yeah, you heard of that? Yeah, so that's true. That was when they were building the bridge. But, like a gymnast would do, I guess, it's just hand over hand. But he was the only person. I didn't hear of anybody else even try that. Usually people would find a canoe on the shore or something like that and just go across, or shout until somebody heard you, "Can you get my father to come pick me up," kind of thing, in boat. So that was the only way to do it, right? No phones, so, yeah.
Was it loud living by the airstrip?
No, not really. Actually, back in the day when it was an airstrip, nobody was really living there. Everybody was all down, towards the beach or down by the river or up along that way. Nobody really lived. They called in along, in where the airstrip was. And again, it was only the mission, the hospital planes land once a day, maybe once every 2 days. So no, it wasn't really loud at all. It was exciting because then we knew if it wasn't on the cable car, we knew somebody was coming to town on the airplane, right? Because you could hear them land, you could hear them take off, right? So, no, not like it is, by airports these days and big jet engines. These are all just prop planes. So, yeah, it was interesting.
How deep was the snow compared to then?
Oh, a lot more snow than this. Wow. Down towards the point where I live now, snowbanks used to be like 14, 15, 16 feet. And just, a lot of people had to dig down to your doors back then. Like I say, it was okay for us then because we didn't have any plowed roads, but we'd only use snowmobiles and ride up and down and go to the store or whatever. But yeah, a lot more snow than what you see now. And I missed the most amount of snow because I seen some pictures when the base was first built back in the 1940s. And some of those big buildings, when you go in on base, that's how high the snow was, right up to the roofs on those. So thankfully it's not like that anymore, but good and bad. You got to have some snow for us to get around, right? But it's only work. When you get older, especially for a man, it's just, all it is just work. Because you're responsible to go and clear your driveway and shovel your steps. And yeah, no, it was interesting growing up here. Like, this was a really happening community back in the day. We were one of the most learned communities in the whole province because all the local people were marrying in with the doctors and the nurses and the teachers because, like, say we had 2 schools and all the teachers had to live here.
How have things changed?
Things changed? In Northwest River, how have things changed? Well, see, before the bridge, we only had a cable car. So that was the only way everybody could come and go was by cable car or across the river in boat. And then 1982, they built a bridge. And before they built the bridge, we actually had power. Before that, we didn't have any electricity. So everybody had to heat their homes with wood and have lamps in their house. And before the bridge again, there was no TV, and then Goose Bay had TV, so then we started watching black and white TV from Goose Bay on antennas, so that was good. But Back then we had 2 schools in town, Lake Melville School and Yale School, down where the community center is now. That's the gym part of the Lake Melville School, of the Yale School. So that's changed. We got 1 school. We used to be the main center for healthcare. We used to have a big hospital in town, and people from all over Labrador would come to Northwest River for healthcare. And we'd have airplanes flying them in, because that was before roads were available. And there wasn't many ships back then, so most people came on airplane or by small boats. That's changed. We certainly didn't have internet back in the day, so we used to have television. We used to rent movies from the Hudson Bay store. They used to be like a big record. Before VHS, before the tapes, you could rent them. We could rent them for the weekend, and we'd sit up and watch movies. You don't see that anymore. They used to have actual vinyl records, so we used to listen to a lot of records, but I mean, they're making a comeback now, but that was long before tapes and CDs. And the vinyl records back in the day, they were $15, now they're $65. I saw that in the store. So that's changed, and we just got more access to Goose Bay. Since they built the bridge in 1982, everything changed in Northwest River. Before that, it was 7 nights a week. We had things on the go. We had floor hockey, ball hockey, broom ball, darts, movies, game nights, spring fairs, and then they built the bridge to Goose Bay, and everybody got too busy. Everybody went to Goose Bay. Didn't have time to volunteer, and nobody had time to make things happen. So in some ways, it was actually better. Northwest River was a better place to be back in the day. Even though things are easier these days, it was more fun and more exciting times back then.
How have your eating habits changed to the past?
Oh boy, well, tell from the gross amount of groceries you could buy. Yeah. Well, back in the day, see, it was pretty much, well, we always had a grocery. That was one good thing about Northwest River. We always had the Hudson Bay store. So again, we were the center for groceries. We were the center for healthcare. We were the center for education back in the 60s and the 70s. But they didn't have everything you can buy these days. When the hospital was here, they had their own hens, right? So they would supply eggs to the hospital, and then every 3 years they would have 3,000 hens come. So then all the hens would be chicken for the hospital. So we would, as local people, we would get some of those. Because again, my father worked for the Grenfell Mission. So then they would have gardens, so our fresh vegetables would be grown, even though it was short growing season. Potatoes seemed to grow well, so I think we always had stocks of potatoes. And then everybody got into it. Once the mission came and taught people how to grow food, then everybody locally had gardens in some way, shape, or form, which we still do. Not everybody, but I still do. Because, again, that all came from back in the day. So, yeah, we would eat our own fresh vegetables and fresh chicken, I guess. But then, yeah, a lot of partridges, a lot of rabbits, a lot of fish, seal. Meat was easy to get back then. So more country foods, I guess, back then. But now it's just so much easier to go store and buy a steak than go, look for a moose or something. And caribou have disappeared. They were here in 1999, 98. I think it was the last time caribou were here. We all had deep fridges, so. And then we had to sell them because caribou stopped coming. But again, there's a lot of red meat, right? So that's not always a good thing either, they say these days. So, yeah, it's just access to food now is so much easier, especially now we got a grocery store here. And even before we had a grocery store, we still had to drive to Goose Bay, so then it was less already. You ran out of something, you just had to make do or go without, right? So, but as you can tell. But that's a fact of getting older too. See, I was used to be a skinny little rat once upon a time, and then as you get older, it just sticks on you, your metabolism, as they say. So yeah, so it's good to be young. Stay young as long as you can, and you'll be happier in life. And don't eat too much.
What are your favorite things to do to pass time now?
Same thing back then. We learned how to play guitar. We used to do a lot of singing and playing. When we were in grade 7 here at Lake Melville School, we had our band. We had our first band. We were the first group to record a record, a 45. My sister lived in Vancouver, so the principal back in the day, Kevin Bell, probably down here in one of these rooms, if not this room, probably the next one, we set up our band, and he took a single microphone tape recorder and we recorded 2 songs. That was back in grade 7. And we sent it off to Vancouver and came back. We had a 45 yes, record that we used to play a lot. It was only good for 200 plays. So that was the more funner thing for us to do, I guess, other than riding around town on skidoos or going off checking our rabbit snares and maybe getting a ride to Goose Bay once or twice a year. That's different. You can go every day or twice a day or 10 times a day, but back then we'd only go to Goose Bay maybe once or twice a year. So that's what we did for fun. And now we have, talk to more people, because now we have telephones that you can dial around the world. Back in the day, we had to have an operator, so if you phone Goose Bay, we only had 3 numbers. Our number for our house was 225, so if anybody dialed 225, the phone would ring at my house.
What do you think the future will be like?
Well, if somebody don't get on the ball, it's not going to get much better. I've been all my life pretty much trying to make this a better place to live, but boy, I tell you, it's certainly difficult. I don't know, unless people start making things change, nothing will change. That's how it kind of works, right? Because we were supposed to have a road to Postville, which is 180 kilometers from Northwest River. We're waiting 60 years, maybe 50 years, and that's still not done. So it's hard for me to predict the future, just because, again, I got to base it on the past. And like I say, it was so much more better here before the bridge came, because we had 2 schools and a hospital. And lots of people, and new people that would travel in and out. So I like to see more houses being built. I mean, everybody needs a place to live. But you got to have, somebody got to take action. And you got to have money too. These days, everybody wants more money, like to build things. And so where our town is so small, it's hard for them to get the money that's required to start big projects. And I mean, if we had a mine next door, or even if Church or Falls or whatever power station was, on our river, there'd be more here. And there's no gold to be found, like some places out Western Canada, right? Small towns like us, they came big because there was an economic factor that makes it better in your community. So there's only so much you can do with trees and sand, right? So, as much as I'd like to see better in the future, it looks like right now, not much is going to change, unfortunately.
What are your hopes for what you'll do in the future?
Well, I'd like to write a book. I did write a book during the pandemic, but it was only made like 6 copies. And it's through a group called Storyworth. So every Monday morning you would have a new email and they would ask you a question for 52 weeks of a year. So you could have 52 chapters. So that's kind of easy. If you ever want to write a book, do that. Go through something called Storyworth. But I like to write another book, something just for fun. I like to write more songs. I like to do a podcast like you guys are doing in the future. I like to spend more time at my cabin and just breathing in nature and living in nature. And probably I'll do more time vacations, probably more driving to places like St. John's, where my family lives. So that's probably what I'll see more in the future, spending more time with my family who live in other places.
What do you think about the future of Northwest River?
Well, again, see, if we had more people living in Northwest River, then we'd have more kids to come to Lake Melville School. If you had more people living in Northwest River, then you have more volunteers for the volunteer committees. You'd have more people on your town councils. You'd have more people trying to start new businesses. You'd have more people doing more fun things like spring fairs and more volunteers for the beach festival. You could have more musicians singing on the stage and just you had more people, it would bring more ideas to our community. So I guess if I had to wish for one thing, yeah, I'd like to see more people living here.
What would help Northwest River in the future?
More people being educated is important for sure. Can help bring more good things to our community. Be kind to each other and, you know, help your elders.
What is your life advice?
Gosh, well, you got to do school. You got to finish school, and you got to go to either college or go to university. I mean, if you're doing academic math and stuff. That's what we did when we graduated Lake Melville School. We did, a bunch of us did academic math and things, but we all went off and did university courses. A bunch of people did college courses. That's the best way. If you don't have an education, if you don't finish grade 12, you're not going to have a good life. I mean, life is good, but it can be so much better because you're not going to be able to have any money to travel if you don't have. Because the better the education, the better employment that you can seek and find, and not just in Northwest River, but you can go anywhere in the world, anywhere in the province, anywhere in Canada, and apply on jobs. So education makes a big difference, and you got to work hard too. See, you sign on the wall, hard work pays off. That's always been our motto and our family's motto. So you can't just sit down and wait for something to happen. You got to make it happen, and it's so true. So true, right? And that's like, even, you know, if you go off to university and whatever, that's probably the best advice I can give you, because this world, it takes a lot of money to live in this world. It's not an easy place to live in, but if you got an education, that means you're going to have a better job and a better paying job, and then, hey, more money than you got in your pocket, the more money you got to feed your families and help other people in your family.
What is your advice for getting through tough times?
Be resilient. Don't let it get to you. We always have, like, because where my family and I, we try to run these businesses in town to try to make this a better place to live. You got to keep it in your mind. Don't take it personal. It's only business. Sometimes it's hard to cross those lines, or those lines get crossed. But after a while, the older you get, then the less things you want to stress you out or something. That's the best way to describe that. When you're young, you know, stuff can roll off your back. You can take the abuse. You can give the good advice. You can take on all new challenges. But it seems like the older you get, the less you want to be having to, I don't know, solve problems. Because that's what I found in life. There's so many problems. You might not see it now, but the older you get and the longer you live, you'll see. And it's not just you. Everybody's got problems. So it's harder again, right, to solve problems. So yeah, try to solve them all while you're young, because when you get older, you come to a point where, oh man, I'm just tired of solving problems or something. So anyway.
What is the key to happiness?
I read summer travel is the key to happiness. So more travel that you do, and even if it's travel to the cabin or going to Goose Bay or going to Lab City, that's a happiness thing. Be kind to the people around you. That creates happiness. Like I say, got a good education, which provides you with a good employment. Money can't buy happiness, but it can buy the things that can make your life easier, like a new truck or a new skidoo or a new boat and motor, or a trip down south or a trip to Vancouver, you know. But you gotta stay positive. And that's the other thing I learned too, as the older you get too. Boy, it's hard. You gotta listen to more, you gotta pray more. Or something. And you gotta do more mindfulness, I think, as well. So, but yeah, when you're young, it's not so bad. You don't see that. But as the older you get, in 40 more years, you guys will know what I'm talking about.
What is the secret to living on the land?
Just got to be, you know, take good advice, learn from the land. Like around here with climate change and things, you got to know, you know, if the ice is not safe or when it is safe to go on there. Know where the best fishing places are and keep going there. Know where the partridges like to live, and keep keep going back looking for them. Because, living on the land really is about gathering food, which it's a good thing. Life in nature it's good, Foraging, berry picking, things like that. Some people get into mushrooms and stuff. That would be a good course to do, to know what mushrooms, foraging. I know when I grew up, my father, because he grew up on the land, he knew every bird, every songbird. He knew what their names were, even if it was not right by the book. He knew what their names were, and to hear their sounds. I always thought that was interesting trait of people that fully lived on the land, like long before us. They totally understood, the animals that were on the land, and the birds in the skies and in the trees. And that seemed to be, use those as signs, I guess. I don't know, if snowbirds come, it's spring is getting closer. That type of thing, if the ducks are leaving, well, then fall is coming. So, yeah, just follow the signs, I guess. Weather, and that is important thing, be a good judge of if the weather's going bad. Back in the day, too, they would have to keep a real close eye on that, on weather. And it's not like today where we can watch TV or use the Weather Network app, which is a game changer, really, for being on the land, having access to forecasts. So, yeah, just be aware of your surroundings, I guess. You want to be on the land and be aware of things that live in your surroundings.
Do you play guitar?
Yes. I can play guitar, I can play bass, I can play drums, I can play keyboards, I play tambourine, play drum box. So, see, when we used to have a band, and we had drums, we had bass, and we could sing, and then we had guitars. So every once in a while, just to change it up, everybody would switch. So we all had a turn playing drums, or we all had a turn playing bass, or we all had a turn singing. So that was the fun part about learning how to play guitar. Learning how to play all of it, keyboards, everything.
How did you become a musician?
Well, again, back in the day here at Lake Melville School, it was just a thing to do, right? There wasn't, we didn't have cell phones. You couldn't go back and forth to Goose Bay a lot. There wasn't really no movies on TV, only black and white ones and stuff. So we just learned guitar for fun, just to kill time, really. And that was lots of fun. And we used to do it like pretty much every day. And then when the dorm was open, that's when all the kids from the coast would come and go to Lake Melville School for the winter. We used to sit up in the back porch and we used to write songs and sing songs, and songs from the North Coast. They would sing to us and we would sing songs from Northwest River, because it seems to be in Northwest River there was a lot of songwriters here. And I guess because, again, they spent a lot of time on the land. And they would just write stories about experiences that they had, if the storm came up or a long ways to go, if they caught a lot of fish or something. They would write a lot. Trapping was a big thing back then, so they would just write songs about it. So, yeah, that's how guitar came about to us, is just boredom, really. And we'd have friends. Some friends were bad, but we were always the good guys because we were the musicians sitting up singing and playing every other night of the week.
How do you get good at guitar?
Play every day. Practice every day. That's when I went to Lake Melville School. I used to go home dinner times and go up play guitar. Just practice chords, you practice changing chords. And then what you need to do is, if you've got a buddy who's learning guitar, two people learning guitar together is so much more easier, because then you can trade things. I said, okay, you show me this and I show you something else. That's how we learn. But yeah, just keep playing. And yeah. And well, actually, Lake Melville School, every Wednesday there was one of our teachers, he was the principal, Kevin Bell, and he could do guitar. So we'd take 2 hours every Wednesday afternoon and learn guitar upstairs in the library. And the school had a bunch of guitars. So that's how I initially learned how to play. And we just continued on. So that's a good thing. I wish they would bring that back, because that kind of stuff sticks with you forever, right?
How do you get good at instruments?
You got to practice. You just got to be. It's practice makes perfect. It really is. No truer words ever spoken about music or singing, or I guess really anything, but especially when it comes to music. And It's so much easier these days because you got all the chords online. You got all the songs online. I mean, as I said earlier, back in the day, if we wanted to learn a song, we'd have to take a record and a needle on the record and keep putting it on and taking it off, taking it on, write down what we heard, and then until the whole song was finished. And that's how we used to learn our songs. But it's so much easier today. And there was a point when they used to come up with songbooks, and they had all the words in the songbook, so that made it easier for us again. But then we had to stop and figure out the chords, and we didn't know all the chords, so then we'd buy songbooks on chords. And that was helpful, especially with Creedence Clearwater Revival was my first chord book. Yeah, Creedence Clearwater Revival, yeah. Yeah, because a lot of it was just basic 3-chord songs and some 4-chord songs, so that's what we allowed to learn on. But then we just, like I say, we just sing songs of Northwest River or sing songs that anybody could dance to. And that's all anybody wanted back in the day was something you could dance to. So that's how we learned, because it was a requirement.
When you were a teenager, how much was a pack of strings?
Hudson Bay store, we could only buy black diamond strings. How much was a pack? Because we really didn't have any money to buy the whole pack, so they would sell us one at a time. But I think it was still like anywhere between $3 and $5, under $5, not $25 like today. So, but yeah, maybe like $1 a string. Let's say, keep it at $1 a string back, back in the 70s. So it's still, that's still not cheap back then either. So that's why we'd only buy one string at a time, because couldn't afford a whole pack. But we used to use guitar strings for throttle cables on our 12s when the throttle cable break. You can reeve it down. There's like a housing, so because a string was cheaper than a new throttle cable.
How many instruments did you play?
Well, I can't play them all well, for sure. Well, because again, I don't practice them, see? But if I practice them, I could play them all well. But, I don't know, drums. I mean, bass is a guitar, but it's a different boom, 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 boom. And just regular guitar. I can play some songs. I was trying to learn myself banjo. So I knew that, but I was banjo, ukulele, mandolin. That's about it. So drums and acoustic guitar and electric guitar are the same. So drums and guitar and bass. Ukulele, banjo, and mandolin, so like 6 instruments, I guess. But again, the more practice you make, the easier it is. So if you want to learn something in life, buy yourself a banjo and watch some banjo videos on YouTube, and you'll get it after a while.
Okay, what do we say?
Yes, and thank you guys for the opportunity.
You've been listening to Labrador Legacy.
Thank you to Arts NL, ArtsSmarts, for funding this program.
We are Rogan, Owen,
Curtis,
Nixon,
Misha,
Caden,
Raylan,
Xavier,
Cody!
Darius,
Noah.
Maddox at Lake Melville School.
Thank you for listening.
Please check out our other episodes of Labrador Legacy.